Can we do a mic check, please?
Sorry, hello.
Hello, we can hear you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lieutenant Lopez, can we do a mic check, please?
Good afternoon. How are you? Can you hear me?
Great, thank you. We can hear you. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Deputy Chief Sims, can we do a mic check, please?
Hello, Supervisor Wasserman.
Hello, Supervisor Ellenberg.
All right, if you are ready to go, it is 2 o'clock, and I'm going to call to order this virtual meeting of the Public Safety and Justice Committee on November 5th, 2020 at 2 p.m. And I will turn to the clerk to take a roll, please.
Vice Chairperson Wasserman.
Here.
And Chairperson Ellenberg.
I'm here as well.
Thank
Do
you.
we have
a quorum.
speakers? Thank you. Do we have speakers for public comment today?
We have one.
All right, let's set the clock for 3 minutes, please.
Okay, if you can just give us a moment to get the timer going. Our first speaker. Oh, one moment here. First speaker, Scott Largent, I am unmuting you. Please accept the unmute and you will have 3 minutes to speak. The timer will start when you begin speaking.
Okay, the unmute thing just popped up on the screen. So can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great, fantastic. Thank you, everyone. Scott Largent. Okay, life has gotten very interesting lately. I like to update people, and I like to utilize public comment as therapy because you guys know I wasn't able to get therapy from our county. Mental health services, drug treatment, housing, all the other good stuff. What I was trying to do originally when I got sober is ask for help. And then what I was trying to do is the issues I had with law enforcement, even the public defender's office, I tried to, file the proper complaints. I got fed up over time that stuff really wasn't changing. Met Victorious Alexander at the public defender's office, and he absolutely bugged me big time when I first met him. And he told me to go into the board chambers. He explained to me what a county board of supervisors was. He let me know where the government center was at, and I showed up to a meeting. After that first meeting that I went to, several sheriff's investigators came to my mother's home in Los Gatos to start asking her questions, why I was attending meetings, what I was doing there, if I was a threat. It was very strange stuff. When I criticized the district attorney's office over the malicious prosecution, the same type of harassment happened. Okay, Judge Gephon, maybe he's actually on the horn right here, he issued a warrant for my arrest for $1,000, which was pretty interesting. And Sheriff Lori Smith wouldn't pull me in on that. They stopped me at the metal detector. They wanted me remanded into custody, teach me a lesson for basically, exercising my democratic values. Then there was another time where they called in a welfare check to my grandmother, okay, for criticizing the sheriff's department at public comment, okay? That pulpit right there is my right to speak up, my right to ask for help, my right to put my grievances on the table. I'm being maliciously prosecuted again for being one person with a megaphone, okay? Talking to police officers, sometimes I don't have the megaphone. I've been detained thousands of times over the last 5 years over this type of stuff. Now, if I were to go out and start tossing Molotov cocktails and, vandalizing stuff and, really turning up the heat and get the numbers out there and just start going, I wouldn't be in court. Jeff, you wouldn't prosecute people like this in our community. You didn't do that when they went and started a fire in the front yard of the mayor's house. That's not what I'm doing. I go to public comment to put my grievances on the table, yet you go after me like I'm a terrorist. You're wasting so much money. I have court tomorrow. That Margia motion makes you look so bad to do that to a clean and sober father. I want to be a dad, Jeff.
Thank you. And I'm reconfirming that there are no additional public speakers.
We have one additional
Oh, we
speaker.
do. Oh, all
Yes.
right. Go right
Our
ahead then.
next-
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Michael Benipayo. I am unmuting you. Please accept the unmute and you will have 3 minutes to speak. The timer will start when you begin speaking.
Good afternoon. Thank you. This is Mike Benipayo from RNPA. I'm joining this meeting today to speak publicly because of a concern that we're having at our lock psych facility at the Barbara Aram Pavilion. Through our nurses, they're telling us that when a patient is assaulted by another patient, or if a staff is assaulted, that when they call the deputy sheriffs, that some of the deputy sheriffs are refusing to go inside the lock facility without their firearms, per our hospital policy, that no firearms should be going in there. And so from what we're told, that these deputies who refuse to go in are asking our staff to bring the patient outside the facility to be interviewed. And currently what they're telling us is that they're insisting that some of these deputies are insisting that they talk to them and via phone instead. And this is this can't really work because the patient is usually, if they're violent, they're usually tied up, and the police officer, the deputy, need to go inside the room to interview and assess the situation and take the report. And so this is a big concern for us because, because imagine if a deputy goes inside the facility with a firearm, and what happens is if that deputy shoots someone, that'd be a big liability. Or what if a psych patient grabs the gun from that deputy? What could happen then, right? So it's a safety issue, and we're asking that the board supervisors direct the sheriffs to ask to at least demand that their deputy sheriffs go into the psych facility without their firearms in their person. And that's all I have to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Before we go to the next speaker, I want to ask any of the public that is joining, if you intend to speak on public comment, please let that be known now. I allotted 3 minutes per speaker on the belief that there were fewer than 5 speakers. So I'm going to ask the clerk. I see that there are currently 2 hands raised. And what I'd like to do, since that would be the maximum number for 3-minute speakers, is close public comment after those 2 speakers. If we have additional people that come in later, they are welcome to speak on specific items on the agenda. And if necessary, we can add time for public comment at the end of the meeting. But let's have the last 2 speakers now, please.
Our next speaker is Robert Aguile. I am unmuting you. Please accept the unmute and you will have 3 minutes to speak. The timer will start when you begin speaking.
Yes, Robert Aguirre here. I brought this subject up before and I haven't seen any action on it. And I think it's very important, especially when we're talking about justice, that we set up a court specifically for unhoused people, because the kind of crimes that they commit are crimes sometimes that are in the act of survival. And for example, trespassing, because as I pointed out one time, wherever an unhoused person is, they are trespassing because they don't own anything. They don't have the right to anything. They occupy space, and they're criminalized for that as well. And there are other crimes also, crimes again of survival, that people maybe steal food or something, and other things that are in a situation that they're forced into, public urination, that sort of thing, indecent exposure, those kinds of charges that are brought against a person that doesn't have a place of their own would be subject to that type of criminalization. So I think it's very important that we do that. I also have talked about and would like to see a commission be made up of people that are housed, unhoused and formerly unhoused, so that anything that that the board is considering passing, any kind of thing that affects unhoused people, will have an opportunity to be reviewed by people that have that lived experience, that can look at it from that particular point of view, and to be able to present things that other people that have never been in that situation would never ever be able to think of or realize, because they live in such privilege that they have no idea of what it's like to do that. So I'm going to end it right there, because I could talk for 3 minutes, but I don't need to. Thank you. Please do something about it.
Our next
Thank
speaker
you.
is Fernando. I am unmuting you. Please accept the unmute and you will have 3 minutes to speak. The timer will start when you begin speaking.
Okay. Hopefully I won't need all 3 minutes, but my name is Fernando Rockstar. I'm a nurse, registered nurse in the Valley Medical Emergency Room. And I just want to bring or highlight the fact that anytime a nurse is assaulted in the emergency department, that they're not taken seriously as far as the assault being reported by the sheriff's department. There's been a history of these assaults happening, and either they're being discouraged by the sheriffs not to report it because it's not going to go nowhere. And so I just want to bring to your attention that this has to stop, because anytime a nurse is assaulted, they have to go out on sick time. It takes them away from their jobs. And the main point is that anytime anyone is assaulted, a report should be made, and they shouldn't be discouraged to make that report. But the sheriff's department, whoever responds, should encourage them to make the report and submit it to the district attorney. But from what I hear, from what I hear is that a lot of times the sheriff's department either are lazy about taking the report, may not come as quick as they should, or from what I hear is that the district attorney is discouraging them from taking the report because it's not going to go nowhere. And so this is something that I believe needs to be stopped, because our nurses need to be appreciated more than that. And at the minimum, the report should be taken and followed up, and the case should be followed up and directed to the district attorney for prosecution. And there was just an incident recently where one of our assistant nurse managers was attacked, or was kicked in the neck by a patient, and she just had finished having surgery. She had a metal plate on her neck when she had an injury a couple of years back, and now this, after being kicked, now she has to go back to surgery to fix whatever damage was done there. So I just want to emphasize that our nurses are valuable to this county, and they're doing a hell of a job during this COVID crisis. And anytime they get assaulted, it should be a big deal. And that's what I want to say. And I want to encourage the sheriff's department to take the report and the district attorney to prosecute as necessary. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll move now to approval of the consent calendar. Supervisor Wasserman, I'd like to recommend one change to the consent calendar if you are amenable. I'd like to put item 7 on consent. That's the report from the sheriff regarding recruitment, academies, and staffing.
That makes sense. Would you like to make a motion, or would you like me to make the motion?
Why don't you make the motion?
I'd like to make a motion then to approve items 5A through G, as well as item number 7.
And I will second that motion.
And if we have any speakers, then we'll sign it off.
Perfect. Do you have speakers?
Yes, we do. We have one speaker at the moment. Our next speaker is Scott Largent. I am unmuting you. Please accept the unmute and you will have 2 minutes to speak. The timer will start when you begin speaking.
All right, great. Thank you, everybody. Yeah, before this was put on consent for item 7, I was going to discuss it in regular comment. As far as the staffing for the sheriff's department, I was wondering why we're not, it's not just volunteers, but am I able to volunteer? I guess that's what I'm just getting at. Can I volunteer to help pull people off the streets? Can Robert Aguirre do the same thing? Can we go out on any type of ride-alongs? We're not felons. I only had a slap on the wrist drug charge. I know every mentally ill person on our streets right now. Okay. I'm the meth whisperer is what they call me out there. I can help you guys get these people to the right places. Robert's a genius when it comes to all this stuff. He basically ran the largest homeless encampment in the United States, and he was the mayor of that place. So who do I need to submit this application to? I think it would be, I think I could do a lot for my county rather than just sitting here and just spilling the beans out at public comment. The San Jose, the city of San Jose right now is trying to figure out a route to do that also, but they're just too slow. So I'm reaching out to the sheriff's department. Can I volunteer? Okay. My phone number, 408-512-4829, in case you guys forgot it. Email address, scottlargent38@gmail.com. Maybe somebody can get back to me. I can help make your guys' life a lot easier at all these different light rail stations. I'm at them all the time. I go out there. Okay. I can communicate with people and I can help you kind of get them out of that situation, get them on with their life, or most of all, get them into the mental institutions that they need to be in if it's required and necessary. So I appreciate it. You guys know how to get a hold of me. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And that concludes your speakers.
Thank you. Yes, Supervisor Wasserman.
I would like to correct the previous
Thank you.
statement that I made. Thank you for putting item number 7 on to consent. I agree with that. I'll make that motion. And we'll leave off what I said about 5 because we're hearing number 5.
We are indeed. And item, we do have as well item 10 on consent, I believe.
3 and 10.
Already.
Thank you.
Okay.
So 7 and 10 on consent is my motion.
All right. So we didn't vote on the first. So the new motion is to approve the consent calendar with the addition of item number 7. And I will second that and turn to the clerk for a roll call.
Vice Chairperson Wasserman
Aye.
and Chairperson Ellenberg.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're going to move now on to item 4, to receive verbal reports from the departments on their response to COVID-19. As always, I'll remind all of the department chairs or leadership that you only need to share if there's something new happening in your COVID response. Please don't feel obligated to present if you don't have anything new. Following all of the reports, we'll go to public comment and then to the two of us. Unless Supervisor Wasserman, do you want to pause quickly for questions after each report?
No, I think the way you've laid it out is great.
Okay. All right, then Martha, I think I'm turning to you, correct?
Superior Court, please, Judge Ryan. Supervisor Ellenberg, this is the sheriff. And we're on item 4, correct?
Yes, we sure are.
So I'd like to introduce Sgt Renee Menchaca. She's from the COVID investigation unit. And I'm not sitting in the room with Sgt Menchaca right now, but I will ask that maybe she shorten her presentation and limit it to any kind of new information that we may have instead of repeating what we've done so often, if that's okay with you, Supervisor Ellenberg.
That's perfect, Sheriff. Thank you very much.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Sgt Renee Menchaca. And I just wanted to give an update regarding the dashboard.
This sound is very muffled.
Oh, okay.
Is it your microphone?
Oh. Is that better?
No.
Martha was there. Supervisor, can I suggest we go ahead and start with Judge Ryan from the Superior Court while we get the microphones worked out?
Happy to do that. Thank you.
Thank you and good afternoon. I just want to let you know that on behalf of our court on November 3rd of this year, I issued a new order regarding face coverings that is consistent with the recommendations from the Santa Clara County Department of Public Health and the CDC. It does disallow single layer gaiters, bandanas, masks with vents. We need to make sure that we have the correct masks and face coverings that people are wearing when they come into court. We will provide the appropriate masks at metal detectors to provide to people to help them to be in compliance if this is needed, because we recognize it is a change and that there may be people coming to court thinking they're in compliance when they may not be. And we'd like to thank very much the Sheriff's Department, Sheriff Smith, Captain Helms, and everyone at the metal detectors for helping us to enforce this order. We also had Dr. Hahn from the Santa Clara County Department of Public Health come to the Hall of Justice just earlier this week for a tour as a follow-up to Dr. Rudman's visit. He's going to provide us with some recommendations after having a chance to review his notes, the prior report, and talking with others. And we greatly appreciate him coming over and doing that. And he's also agreed to join us on the Friday bench meeting that I have by Zoom every Friday morning at 8:30 to answer any questions from our judicial officers. So we thank him very much and for that.
Thank you very much, Judge Ryan.
Certainly.
Sergeant Menchaca is working on her microphone. Let's go ahead and go to District Attorney Rosen, please.
Thank you. The District Attorney's Office continues to work well as we continue to adjust to life with COVID. Let me just give a brief update on current events and then close by talking about some of the things that we've learned during this time and that we expect will become common practice as we move to what we're calling a better normal. So in terms of trials, thanks to the excellent efforts of our courts under Judge Ryan and Judge Giffon's leadership, there are 6 to 8 courtrooms in the Hall of Justice available to try cases. The courtrooms have been reconfigured to ensure the safety of everyone involved in trials, and jury selection is done 1 trial at a time with 20 prospective jurors. It's about 1/3 to 1/4 the size of pre-COVID jury pools, so things take a little bit longer. We hear that the jurors appreciate the changes and have commented that the protocols make them feel safe. Even though the ability of 6 to 8 courtrooms is significantly less than the pre-COVID level, where we had 18 courtrooms for criminal, the court has been able to reduce the backlog of time not waived criminal trials from a high of about 300 in July to about 100 currently. So we're moving in the right direction. In terms of other court activities, most critical court hearings have continued. Arraignments of in-custody defendants, time not waived prelims, family violence arraignments for out-of-custody defendants. We're doing almost all of the things we were doing before. Other counties did not react as quickly and have seen different public safety issues come up as a result, and we have not experienced that. Other functions have been gradually added, bail motions, withdrawals of time waivers, mental health calendars, motions calendars, in courts at the North and South County locations. While there's still a backlog as a result of the shrinking capacity, we're working through this and are nearing pre-COVID activity levels, even with fewer courts operating. And then a better normal. I mentioned a better normal. And one of the reasons we've been able to achieve this level of court activity is the ability to do remote appearances. We offered to procure and provide equipment to the court in March that allows us to conduct remote appearances. And with the help of other justice system partners, we were able to establish this capability, particularly for defendants to appear from the county jail. We fully expect that remote appearances will continue after the pandemic as they simplify the process, save on transportation costs, and provide flexibility for everyone involved. Another thing we've learned that works is remote work. I've been very pleased to find how productive our office has been during this pandemic, and it's because our employees have the tools they need, and they've been just as diligent at home as they always were inside the office. We created a committee comprised of a cross-section of our office to discuss how we can facilitate the continuation of remote work post-pandemic. And this committee came up with a lot of good ideas that we expect to implement. Finally, the pandemic prompted a serious effort to reduce the jail population to make the jail safer during COVID-19. Because of the collaboration with our justice system partners, And because we took a very careful analytical approach to the work, there has been no significant effect on crime rates in our county. This kind of approach will continue and is reflected in a number of the Bend the Arc reforms that I announced a month or so ago. So I'm optimistic we'll be able to sustain a reduced jail population going forward. While the pandemic has certainly been challenging for all of us, it has taught us things that will carry on after it's over. These things we've learned and many more will help us create a better normal in the DA's office. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's go ahead and go back to the Sheriff's Office, Sergeant Menchaca.
Hi, yes. I just wanted to go over two things. One is the dashboard. CIU, our COVID-19 investigation unit, continues to provide statistical data via our agency's COVID-19 dashboard. Our employee portal will soon be mirroring the inmates, and that's expected to be updated soon. Also, the face mask directive that Dr. Smith sent on November 3rd, we've taken heed and we're currently constructing an internal draft for staff. We also will be distributing the notifications to other units that have contact with our staff and our inmates, such as transportation, court movement, and other units that we come across that we feel need those notifications. And that concludes my report. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you. Do we have, I think we've got some more departments and then we'll do questions at the end.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Lieutenant.
Sure, we can go on then to Custody Health Services, Dr. Day. You're on mute, Dr. Day.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Supervisor Ellenberg and Supervisor Wasserman. This is a quarterly report for Custody Health Services. Two things, we have sent out 2 memos to all staff. One was requiring surgical masks to be worn rather than cloth masks and or gaiters. We also sent out a memo as of yesterday that as of November the 4th, we will begin twice monthly testing of all of our staff. And this is required testing for the RT-PCR COVID-19 testing. A couple of roll-ups for you, just for your knowing, for our asymptomatic patient testing for the 3rd quarter. We have tested 5,571 adult patients. We've tested 280 juvenile patients. For the adults, we had a 91 positivity rate, and for the juveniles, we had 0. And so those rates are still coming under what the public county, Santa Clara County is at 2.5, and the state as 3.53, and our positivity rate is 1.3.
Excuse me, through the chair, if I may, Doctor, sorry to interrupt. Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
Thank you. And Doctor, just for the record, I heard you say you had a 91% positivity rate. And I don't think that's what you meant.
For the testing for our patients for the last 3 months. And for the last 3 months, we had 91 patients that were positive.
You had 91 patients that were positive, not a 91%.
No, a positivity rate of 91 out of 5,571 tests.
Thank you very much for the clarification. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. And just for our asymptomatic employee testing, we tested over the last 3 months, 2,054 staff. We had 175 of those that were staff that were from the Custody Health Services with a 55% compliance rate. And we're still working on to increase that compliance rate. Thank you.
With that, we'll move on to Public Defender O'Neill.
Good afternoon, supervisors and the rest of the Public Safety Committee. I'll be fairly brief. I just wanted to thank Judge Ryan and Judge Geffon for agreeing my request to have a gathering of public safety stakeholders to talk about courthouse safety. And I really applaud the new mask order and the walkthrough by Dr. Hahn. I'm hoping that there will be a written write-up by Dr. Hahn about his tour. I can see Judge Ryan shaking her head, so that's great. We'll look forward to hearing what recommendations he made and working together to keep everybody safe as we move into flu season in the winter. So thank you for that.
Thank you. With that, we'll move on to Independent Defense Counsel. Sylvia?
I do not have any updates for anyone. I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you. With that, we'll move on to Probation. Chief Garnett?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to turn this over to Deputy Chief Burchard. We don't have any changes on the services side, and he's got some updates for the institutions. Thank you.
Good afternoon, supervisors. I just would like to report that as of last week, we began in-person visiting at Juvenile Hall and the James Ranch with parents and or guardians. So far, it's been successful. Everybody has had the opportunity, if they chose to see their child if they were in custody. So I think that that's great news moving forward, and we're certainly thankful to the Public Health Department who helped sign off on this process and our protocols so that we could start to engage this again. Supervisor Ellenberg, I know that you had asked about indoor visiting at some point when the weather becomes inclement, and we definitely have a planning process in place that was also approved by the Public Health Department when that time comes as well. And then lastly, I would just mention that we had a pop-up testing at the juvenile courthouse building at 840 Guadalupe Parkway, where we had over 185 folks get tested. It was a free testing. I'd like to thank the Public Health Department once again and VMC to be able to provide that service to our parents of youth that are certainly in custody and those who are coming to court. We had contacted all the parents of the youth that were in juvenile hall to let them know that there was the availability for free testing to bring other children down and family members if they wanted to. We had probation officers who engaged their families, and there was some who came down as well, siblings that were involved in that process. I know that the courts, public defender, district attorney, everybody was engaged in that process, and it was a very good turnout. And I will say that we have another one scheduled for November 10th. So if you'd like to come by, please do. It was very successful and offers that opportunity for people to receive a free test. And it was very unintrusive, and it took 5 to 10 minutes and you were out of there. So it was a very successful event.
Thank you.
Sorry. With that, we'll go ahead and move on to Reentry Services. Javier?
Yes, good afternoon. Just 2 quick updates. We plan to make some modifications to staffing the resource table at Elmwood starting tomorrow. So we had our service providers staff the resource table Monday through Saturday evenings. We are now, due to just the tables are being utilized less and less over time. Instead of doing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday evenings, we're only scheduling Friday evenings and Saturday mornings. We still offer Monday through Friday mornings with the behavioral health faith base and one of our providers. And we'll be looking at working with our service providers to consider staffing services at the reentry center in the evenings and the weekends at some point. And then lastly, just wanted to give an update on our Rise Up and Run 5K. So as of today, we have 356 participants that register for the race. We received about $9,400 in sponsorships, about $6,500 in individual donations. So we're a little bit over $18,000 in net profit, and that will be towards purchasing new clothes for our clients that are exiting our jail correctional facilities. And you still have until Saturday, November 7th to register and run or walk our Rise Up and Run race. Thank you.
Thank you, Javier. Moving on to our last presenter, PreTrial Services, Matt.
Good afternoon. Sorry for my technical challenges. I understand my screen was flashing and really distracting. I really appreciated District Attorney Rosen's comments because they went to illustrate how many adjustments everybody's made from the court through the whole continuum to make things work somehow. The only thing that PreTrial would add to report is that this Saturday we will resume our Prop 36 drug testing with probation. We're starting very slowly. We received some advice from the Public Health Department, and so we have a safe way to do it, just very gradually to begin with. That's all I have.
Thank you very much, Matt. That was our last presenter, Supervisor, for item 4.
Thank you very much. I have a couple of questions for two of the presenters that I'll ask now, turn to Supervisor Wasserman, and then we'll check in with public comment.
No questions from me. Thank you.
None from you? Okay.
Excellent.
Nick, thank you so much for the probation report and for working to connect kids better with their families. Do you have an update on the restart of in-person programs?
We don't have that yet. This is kind of that one step at a time process. We just recently had teachers come back on a limited basis, including with the teachers, and these in-person visiting is going to be serial testing of all the youth and staff as well. And so it's kind of like that, where you sit in the state and the county of where the orange box, the purple and the yellow, and we're doing it kind of gradually, a step by step, just to see how this works out and make sure that we don't overstep. And certainly having the kids' safety is certainly our number one priority. So we're inching towards those areas, but again, it'll be in collaboration with public health and custody health, Dr. Day and Dr. Hahn, and certainly everything we do gets vetted through them.
Good. I know that for Dr. Cody, it's been a priority for her to see schools, regular schools open countywide. And I would think that the same standards of care could be applied here. The ratios are probably even far lower, but I know that I appreciate the step-by-step motions and hope that we really can move on to just giving kids as rich a time that they need to spend in juvenile hall as possible.
Yeah, and right now we do have the teachers that are back in. It's not a full-time basis, that they're also doing a step-in process as well. And so they're there a few days a week and also doing Zoom. So both at the James Ranch and Juvenile Hall, there are teachers back in the classroom.
Thank you for clarifying. So it's other programs other than the teachers that you're talking about.
Yes,
got it.
Correct.
Okay, thank you very much. Also for the sheriff or the lieutenant, last month I requested that the department work towards applying the same updates as the inmate dashboard to the staff dashboard by providing test and case count data. And I think you said, Stephanie, that those updates were coming soon, but I wonder if you could narrow that down a little bit as to when we might expect updates to the staff dashboard to be available on the website.
Sure, we're expecting in approximately 2 weeks. There have been other items that have been pressing and have taken priority, but the ETA is approximately 2 weeks.
Great, thank you. And how many staff are currently assigned to COVID tracking and contact tracing, and what departments have they been pulled from?
Currently, we have 11, and they are all from the Custody Bureau.
Okay, and can you just help me understand why contact tracers have been assigned from within your department rather than using the at-large county contact tracers, since I assume they are responsible for following up on every positive case?
So largely because the systems that we have in place, the Custody Bureau is very familiar with them, and such as CCTV and the BWCs, they know how to access them, and they're familiar with the facilities and the navigation of that. And so they're excited, they want to be part of it, and so yeah, we have that's the main reason.
Interesting. So do you know if that work is being duplicated, or is County Public Health also doing contact tracing for those same positive cases?
We do work in collaboration with them, but they don't. We don't do double work. We basically do all the heavy lifting for that. A lot of our contact tracing happens with footage and interviews, and like I said, the body-worn cameras. So that's all those things are, well, minus the interviews, are what other contact tracers wouldn't have access to.
Okay. And 11 people are doing that full time?
Yes. So there's 3 per shift, And some, there are actually two management analysts that one is not assigned to the unit currently, and the other goes back and forth between investigations and our unit.
Okay, well, fortunately, the numbers have been very low in custody setting recently, which is terrific news. And hopefully you'll get to a place very soon where far fewer people, if any, can do that, because I know that you need those folks in other departments as well.
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much. Supervisor, let's go to the public, please.
We have one speaker in our queue.
Okay.
Our next speaker is Robert Aguile. I am unmuting you. Please accept the unmute and you will have 2 minutes to speak. The timer will start when you begin speaking.
Okay, so I have several comments. One has to do with the courts. And I know that I have tried to go and support people in court, and they're not allowing people to go in there. And in some cases, I'm not really providing legal advice. I know that I'm not a lawyer, but for some people, they need emotional support, and they're facing something that they see as extremely serious, and they'd like to have somebody there with them to, just to even help calm them down. And yet, I and others I know that are trying to do this are not being allowed into the courts. Also, to the public defender's office, when people go to court, especially if they have several cases and they have to keep coming back to court, it seems as if every time they have a different public defender, and they almost have to tell their story over and over and over again. Every time they get a new person in there that has no real history, and there's very little information that's in their folder that really gives the background of what's going on, and they get dismissed in a lot of their complaints. Also, in the reentry, I think that we need to have some sort of services where we provide people that are dealing with addictions, so that they can go in there with whatever type of addiction they have, besides just being handed a piece of paper and saying, here are the places where you can go and get help. But if they could actually get help while they're there, it would be terrific. And for PreTrial Services, I think it would be good if also they were to be able to provide services to people that are about to go into court, to be able to explain to them what's going on. And I know the PD is supposed to do that, but typically the PD doesn't talk to them until just before they have to go get called for their case. And so there's very little support that they get ahead of time. I think that's something that that all these departments should consider, providing better services for the people, and in particular for me, the unhoused people that don't have access to a lot of help.
Our next speaker is Scott Largent. I am unmuting you. Please accept the unmute and you will have 2 minutes to speak. The timer will start when you begin speaking.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. As far as the courts during COVID right now, I find it disturbing that you can't go in there with any type of support people. I understand that there's certain things with, girlfriend, boyfriend, mother, father, they're all being denied. And in Santa Clara County, you can go into Home Depots, you can go into Lowe's, you can go into, Target, and all these places seem to be doing pretty good. And they seem to be socially distancing properly, wearing masks, using hand sanitizers, kind of keeping the ship flowing. But it's not the way in our courts. Now, we've tried to go advocate for a lot of different homeless people right now, and it's been very, very rough. It's not just COVID, along with all the rioting that went on downtown when everything spilled out. A lot of these people were dodging rubber bullets. They were trying to find places to sleep. Their lifeline got cut off. I guess what I'm getting at is we need to figure out something involving homeless court. And I think that would be effective right now. I completely disagree with how Judge Manley's handling things in that new courthouse. And during COVID, remote court appearances for mentally ill homeless drug addicts is just not really going to happen. With those Obama phones, they're garbage. You can only load a certain amount of apps on there. And I am constantly repairing these phones on the streets for people. It's very, very hard for them to participate. And maybe we could roll something out in that lobby of these courthouses with some terminals set up, you know, with a couple of computers, so the people that don't have the proper equipment can get online. They can attend their court appearances, and just let's say they wanted to put their grievances out the table at this meeting, they would be able to do the same thing also. Thank you.
And that concludes our public comment.
Thank you very much. Do we need a motion to receive this report for item 4?
No, ma'am.
We do not. Thank you very much, Supervisor Wasserman, keeping me on my toes. We'll move then to item 5, which is to receive a report from the OCLEM on the status of information, the information sharing agreement. Mr. Giannacco made this report to the full board on Tuesday. So rather than give it again, Michael, I'm going to just turn to you and ask if there are any updates since Tuesday, and then I'll share what action the board took on Tuesday.
Thank you, Supervisor Ellenberg. As you know, your motion is to, the motion that was accepted by the full board was to consider revising the ordinance to provide 1185 subpoena power. And we'll be working with County Council. County Council, I think, got the assignment, but we will be certainly contributing to that effort with our experience and expertise in the area. The second thing that was part of the motion, I think, was amended, and we are already starting to do is in the interim to focus and drill down on other aspects of the ordinance that we can try to redirect our efforts, which are areas of custody health. So we are going to engage on the custody health piece with more of our resources directed in that area, and redefine our plan, at least for the interim, to focus on custody health issues that pertain to the jails, and they're clearly important.
Thanks so much. I'll just build very briefly on that with a little bit more detail for anyone that didn't hear the meeting on Tuesday. My colleagues unanimously approved my motion to return to the board at the first meeting in December with an amended ordinance that would grant subpoena authority to the OCLEM. The subpoena power should be extended consistent, as Michael said, with AB 1185 and or by extending the board's existing subpoena power. The ordinance will return to the first board meeting in December, and if it is approved, it will take effect in January. And in addition to the motion, but separate from it, Supervisor Cortese had requested an analysis by County Council on the pros and cons of the delegation of all of the board's subpoena power versus a more narrowly tailored subpoena delegation based on request for specific documents or data by OCLEM. And timing on that report was requested to be sent to the board before that December meeting. And at the same meeting on the same item, Supervisor Chavez requested a concrete work plan from OCLEM to come concurrent with the second reading of the amended ordinance. That would be assuming the first reading is approved in December, the second December meeting. This request will not slow down the creation of the amended ordinance. Supervisor Chavez highlighted the body of work delegated through my earlier referral to the CCLEM, or the community committee, curated from the community conversations my office organized last July, as well as efforts, again, as Michael mentioned, to improve services in custody health that can be progressed independent of receiving information from the sheriff. I'm going to turn to Supervisor Wasserman and then any other committee members that want to make comments or ask questions on this item.
I think you summarized what we did on Tuesday excellently.
Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Do any panelists want to add comments or have questions? Sylvia, the independent public defender, go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I just wanted to express my gratitude to you, Supervisor Ellenberg, and voice my support for the board's actions in this agenda item. In reading the report, I just want to share from my perspective in leading the Independent Defense Counsel office. how valuable this is if we look at it in the context of where it's or why it's here. And one thing that we don't want to do is to forget the tragic and horrible circumstances of Mr. Tyree's death, the injustice that was, and then while his perpetrators have been held accountable individually, I think our system will not be accountable systemically if we do not give teeth and validity to OCLEM and its objectives and purpose. I am actually gravely concerned about the lack of transparency because I believe that is so incredibly important to restore faith and confidence in our institutions as public entities funded by public dollars with an objective to minimize, if not eliminate, egregious use of force and misconduct by public county employees. And so I am heartened by the board's action, and I hope that the board's action is an indication to the community that has been so vocal to hold law enforcement accountable when there is evidence of misconduct. And so I fully support the board's position. I think it's a very important and critical role that you play. And it's unfortunate that it has to go through the subpoena process because it is going to be cumbersome. It is going to be more difficult. It is going to add more work. But I want to also share that from a public perception, it may be that there's very legitimate reasons why the sheriff is not cooperating fully without the subpoena power. But I just want to say that from a perception perspective, if the board's mandate is not enough for the sheriff to share information about this critical issue, then that means that there may be instances when they're not sharing information that can be very important and is actually so necessary. And so I have to say that in order for us to really accomplish reform as we intend and we need to have the information, we need to have the data. And so I hope that there is improvement down the road in other information sharing circumstances when we need it, because without it, I think we will not make the progress that I think our public expects us to. So thank you for the opportunity to be heard.
Thanks, Sylvia. Are there additional comments? If there are, looking at the panelists, I don't see any raised blue hands or anybody waving at me. So with that, we'll go to members of the public.
We have one public speaker at the moment in the queue. Our next speaker is Scott Largent. I am unmuting you. Please accept the unmute and you will have 2 minutes to speak. The timer will start when you begin speaking.
Thank you, everyone. Things are kind of getting messy in our county when it comes to this type of stuff. I think it's just a trust issue. And I understand releasing information, working with departments. I believe when the jail was thrown in Lori Smith's lap, that thing was an absolute disaster. And a lot of politicians in preparation for the Super Bowl started stockpiling all the mentally ill and homeless into our jails. And that just created what happened, of course. But we blamed every single thing on Sheriff Smith. And I'm beginning to think we're back on that bandwagon again. It's kind of like how they blame everything on Donald Trump. I mean, I know he's a wreck, but I mean, that's what it seems like. I would not trust any of you attorneys. You guys know that. What do I refer to it as? And this is not bad language, illness spreading germ attorneys in Santa Clara County. I've had horrible run-ins with you, Sylvia Perez, giving me horrible legal advice and setting me up to slaughter. Same with you, Molly, not returning phone calls and basically leaving me to live in a van on the side of your PDO office. Why would you trust these people? I think Lori's smart not to let you into her castle over there. No way. I think she's doing it right here. I know it might sound weird. The general public is concerned. It's very, very weird. I'm frustrated with you politicians, and people need to start taking responsibility. And it's not just on police. It's not just, I'd have to say there's such a small percentage of bad police officers. About half of you attorneys need to have handcuffs on, and you're the ones that are wrecking this place. And I believe in the county counsel's office, didn't the other undersheriff that ran against Lori, didn't you guys rig a bunch of stuff for that election too? She wouldn't trust you guys at all.
And that concludes our public speakers.
Thank you very much. We will move then on to item 6, which is to receive a report from the Office of the Sheriff on inmate grievance trends.
Hello, I'd like to introduce Lieutenant Joseph Nguyen of the Grievance Unit to provide some comments. Thank you, Lieutenant.
Thank you, ma'am, for the introduction. Are we playing the slide right now?
Not at the moment.
All right.
There's no screen sharing yet.
Let me stand by real quick. Is it working right now? Sorry.
Yes.
I'm not very tech savvy.
You got it.
Play. From beginning. All right, thank you for bearing with me through the technical difficulties. Good afternoon, everyone. This is our Q3 grievance quarterly report from the period of July to September. So the measures of success for the department is to respond to grievances within 30 days, have a centralized, meaningful review process, and a robust tracking system to analyze and reduce the complaints. So this slide right here is our response rate for the last quarter. 98.4% of all submitted grievances were answered and returned back to the inmate within 30 days or less. On average, about 50% of grievances are entered, responded to, and provide a resolution back to the inmates within 5 days or less. Also on average, on the other end of the spectrum, less than 10% of responses are returned back to the inmates between days 21 and 31. The grievance appeal process allows the inmate to contest the original disposition of the grievance. Inmates are allowed 1 appeal per grievance. Out of 2,022 responses submitted for Q3, about 1.3% of all dispositions were challenged by the inmate. This number is pretty consistent with the previous quarter. There's no changes at all. There were several trends identified for the Q3. When compared to the previous year, there was a 25.88% overall decrease in inmate grievances compared to the same quarter from 2019. The main jail decreased by 6.34% in grievance submissions, while the Elmwood facility decreased by 16.2%. The most significant decrease occurred at the Elmwood Women's Facility with a 56.3% reduction rate. The COVID-19 pandemic presented many unprecedented challenges for both the facilities and the criminal justice system. In a collaborative effort to decrease the jail population, judicial changes and directives were implemented in mid-March. resulting in a 36.8% reduction of the inmate population compared to the same quarter last year. This is a contributing factor to the lower grievance count reported this quarter. The top two grievance categories for the last quarter were medical services and commissary.
Excuse me, Lieutenant. Madam Chair?
Yes.
Through the chair, if I may. Thank
Go
you.
ahead.
I know that you and I have received the 30-some pages of the PowerPoint slide presentation. If we could get highlights or ask some questions, Lieutenant, we received these in advance and read through them. If there's some highlights you can bring out to us, I think that would be appropriate now, Madam Chair, if you agree.
I would appreciate that very much. Thanks, Supervisor Wasserman.
Thank you, Supervisor. I can do that.
Thank you.
These are the grievance response trends for medical grievances. These are the subcategories for the last quarter for medical. This is the grievance line for commissary, the second most grievance category for last quarter. This is the subcategory. And even though commissary was the number 2 category, there was a spike in grievances in mid-March when the suspension of commissary service were abruptly suspended for the inmates. But within 2 weeks, a modified service was reintroduced back to the inmates. And since then, there has been a 90% decrease in grievance submissions for the commissary category from April to last month. We continually monitor grievances and the content so we can reintroduce and safely introduce services back to the inmates and on an ongoing basis. So we went from 370 grievances to last month, which is at 36. So also for medical grievances, it has been decreasing. Director of Medical Services did receive training in the grievance unit, and in the collaborative effort with County Council, Medical Services, and a grievance unit, we've been reviewing responses to ensure that all responses are meaningful and provided back to the inmate. So that's on a monthly basis, we do that audit. And any questions? That is the full report.
Supervisor Wasserman.
Thank you, Lieutenant Nguyen. Through the chair, if I may, to the lieutenant. Lieutenant, I'm a sports nut, so I focus more on percentages than I do total numbers. I know our jail population has decreased dramatically this year. And what page or what chart, what slide in your report, I know where you show that the number of grievances has fallen, and I know our number of inmates has fallen. What I'm interested in is a comparison. Did we receive 25% of inmates filed grievances last year and 20% do now, or 30% now? Where can I find that percentage comparison? I understand you have fewer grievances filed because we have fewer inmates, but I'm wondering percentage-wise, how do we compare it to last year?
Yeah, we can get that number for you on a separate report, sir.
Okay, I know on your page 3, where you had 4 bar charts, and you had the quantities, you had the grievances above the blue bar chart, like the first column, main jail, it said 18 out of 782, 97.8 as far as your response time. My specific question through the chair, if you could perhaps do, is an off-agenda report back to us, fine, Supervisor Ellenberg?
Took the words out of my mouth.
Thank you very much. So Lieutenant, when you're able to, if you could send to Supervisor Ellenberg and I and the rest of the committee, whatever you feel is appropriate, the percentage of inmates that file grievances now compared to the percentage of inmates that filed grievances, say, a year ago, maybe year over year?
Yes, I can do that.
Okay, thank you very much. Or maybe a 6-month trend, whatever you can do with your statistics.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. That's all I have, Madam Supervisor.
Thanks, Mike. That's in fact exactly where I was going. So I do support your request for a report back, although I'd like it to be in December rather than the open-ended return that you asked for. I think this information is important to have now, particularly as we're still in the midst of COVID.
Excuse me, just.
Yes, sir.
What I had said, and I thought you had okayed, but perhaps I misunderstood, that we'd receive an off-agenda report back from the lieutenant. Are you saying that he's to bring it back to a meeting now instead? What is your preference?
You know, I would actually rather be able to look at it again publicly in the December, at the December meeting. If it's a brief, you know, concise report that can go on consent, that's fine, but it's still then part of the public record, and I'd like to do that if that's all right with you.
Yeah, as you wish. I just wanted to make sure we were on.
Okay.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I would like to come back at the December meeting. So thank you very much. Let's go to the public, unless there are any, and I keep, I'm sorry, I assume you'll wave at me or let me know if I am neglecting to include any panelists who wish to make a comment on this or any other item. Please always make yourself known, even if I'm forgetting to look all over my screen. Do we have public speakers on this item?
We do. We have 2 speakers in our queue at the moment.
Okay.
Our first speaker is Scott Largent. I am unmuting you. Please accept the unmute and you will have 2 minutes to speak. The timer will start when you begin speaking.
Thank you, everyone. Scott Largent. Buried in these jail complaints would be probably, I believe she filed about 12 of them. Simple Rose, Sumatra Rose. She was a woman that we brought in there to speak to the board. I got to know her years back in Campbell. She's been a staple of the area there for a long time. Wonderful woman, fell on some really bad times, and it's just really sad her story, but she keeps fighting and fighting to take care of people. Yeah, she's a wonderful woman. She was not taken to her civil court appearance. Okay, we talked about this. Robert talked about it. She filed the grievances. This civil court appearance was for a stay-away order that some neighbors got behind the Safeway in Campbell. They put the whole family on there, you know, blah, blah, blah. We kept doing our digging, and we kind of figured out what really happened. And this has triggered all sorts of other charges from an original order that she was not taken to court. And if she had the opportunity to fight this case, she would have had Robert Aguile side by side with her. I would have been there. We started doing our own research. You know, I think we would have knocked it out of the park. We would have got that order removed. And she would have been able to have gotten onto her life. She lives on the side of City Hall right now. I have talked about this a lot. I am wondering, those messages I'm leaving you, Molly, I'm concerned about this woman. I care about her a lot. I want to get her off the streets. And I would appreciate the phone call back. That woman was not put through Penal Code 1001.36. She was railroaded. The public defender's office fooled bros. They pulled the wool over my eyes. She does not have to be in Manly's courtroom. Most of these people do not have to be in there. So I'm just curious why you guys are lying to these people to throw them into the mental health dragnet and keep them on probation for 10 years.
Our next speaker is Robert Aguirre. I am unmuting you. Please accept the unmute and you will have 2 minutes to speak. The timer will start when you begin speaking.
Yes, Robert Aguirre here again. Yeah, I'd like to comment on the grievance process. And I know that there are some inmates that have filed grievances and they just either never make it through the process. I don't know at what point they disappear, but I know that there's some people that write a grievance and then they don't get a response. They write another one and then they start writing them every day, hoping that at least one of them is going to get through. But I think what ends up happening is some of the correctional officers just don't want to deal with some of these people. And rather than pass it on, they just somehow make it disappear. And they never get any chance to be heard. And oftentimes they get released and their original grievance was never really dealt with. And they're still dealing with the problem mentally because whatever it was that they were writing the grievance about was never resolved. And so I don't know if there's a way for inmates to be able to make known by other people that they have actually filled out a grievance and that nothing has been done. They've got no response, even a notice saying denial or something. It's just left in the air. So I think that's a loop that needs to be closed, and we need to look at how that's done and how it could be done better, so that people get better assistance while they are in our custody. And I think we have a responsibility to them as well. Just because they committed one crime doesn't mean that they're guilty of everything. So please look into that. Thank you.
And that concludes our public speakers.
Thank you very much. I will move then on to item 8 because, yes, Mike.
Sorry, I think because we asked for a report back from the lieutenant, that I should just make a motion to receive the report and for the report back to come at the next meeting. You said in December, which is December 3rd.
I will second that motion.
Thank you.
I think we should do a roll call then as well.
Yep.
Vice Chairperson Wasserman
Aye.
and Chairperson Ellenberg.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Yep. Item 7, we move to consent. So item 8 is to receive a report from the sheriff on training topics.
I'd like to introduce Captain Oberdorfer as the captain who's overseeing the training division.
Good afternoon, supervisors. I recently took over the training unit. I'm excited to be here this afternoon. Before you is the quarterly report on training. Also on the line is Lieutenant Lopez, who manages our academy and in-service training, as well as our range and many of our other training programs. We're open to questions.
Thank you very much. Supervisor Wasserman, do you have any questions?
No, ma'am.
I do. About a year ago, I requested a report from the sheriff on how the department determines training adequacy as opposed to training provision. I brought this to the department's attention on October 16th, hoping for a response. And on October 29th, after reviewing the ledge file, I sent a follow-up email attaching the memo I had composed, which details the reasons why we were requesting this information. Training units like de-escalation, implicit bias, gender response, and CSEC protocols, for example, are provided only once, while shooting and driving are evergreen skills. And in my view, and arguably the trainings that support positive interactions between law enforcement agencies and the community should also be evergreen. So I'm requesting that a status on this report be brought off agenda and that a full discussion be continued to the December meeting. And just to emphasize again, I understand that you're bringing training programs. What I'm really interested in knowing is how you're evaluating the efficacy of the programs. What are the metrics? How do we know that they are having the desired impact? Does that make sense?
It does, and that's something that our unit is actively working on. I reached out to your policy aide last night and advised her that we'll have the report back done within the next few days, and I look forward to that discussion.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Are there any comments from panelists or questions? Do we have any public comment on this item?
Yes, we have 2 speakers in the queue at the moment.
All right.
Our first speaker is Scott Largent. I am unmuting you. Please accept the unmute and you will have 2 minutes to speak. The timer will start when you begin speaking.
Thank you, everyone. Scott Largent. I always like watching the Santa Clara County Sheriff's Department, the certain areas where they have their jurisdiction, including the light rail and the courts. I sit back and I observe. I see how they handle a mentally ill person, a homeless person, somebody that's elderly. And I believe from all the training in the jails and by having all these other contracts, they are a leg up on the other police departments. I don't think San Jose Police Department has that type of training. Now, we went through on the FGOC committee for a long time, fixing these problems, getting these courses completed, getting up to speed for in custody and out of custody. And I was very impressed with that. And I do see it on a street level. I was hoping that just maybe the two agencies could have a chat, have a conversation. I think there's things that our sheriff's department could share with the PD that would help them out a lot, including what happened during the protesting in our county, basically in downtown San Jose. I've said this before, the sheriff's department was a class act. They handled the protesting. I was just amazed. They were not firing off the rubber bullet hand cannons. They were not beating people with nightsticks. They were communicating with people. And when people were just yelling and screaming and riled up days into this thing, they handled it well. It was neat to see, because the PD did not handle it well. They got butthurt real fast and they just started shooting everybody. It was like, wow. Maybe we could share what we're doing here in Santa Clara County with our sheriff's department with the PD. And I'm so concerned about the separations. It's the same with the city and the county. It's always, one's not showing up to the other person's stuff. And I go to both of your guys' meetings, so I know what's up. So thank you.
Our next speaker is Robert Aguile. I am unmuting you. Please accept the unmute and you will have 2 minutes to speak. The timer will start when you begin speaking.
Yeah, Robert Aguirre here. I'd like to commend you, especially Supervisor Ellenberg, for calling people on the carpet for things that you have requested in the past. I feel the kind of frustration that you feel when you ask for something and then you don't hear anything back over and over again, and you start to wonder if anybody's actually paying attention to you. Fortunately for you, you're in a position where you can demand things and resend memos and get people off of their bum to get stuff done for you. So one, I do appreciate the fact that you do that, and I've heard this not just in this committee but other meetings where I've heard you do that. So that's great, and that's one of the things I really like about you. Now I have also helped the San Jose PD in teaching their implicit bias and procedural justice. So I kind of understand how that works. But what I also see that doesn't happen in the San Jose PD is that it doesn't come back. So people, once they get the training, it's like a one-time deal. And this is not something that you learn how to swim and then you don't have to take swimming lessons ever again. This is something that needs to be reinforced over and over again, especially if you've been out in the field and you kind of get apart from the original training that you got, and you start to fall into bad habits and other people around you start to influence you and you start doing things differently. So I do appreciate the fact that you're asking for this to come back and for people to continue to get retrained on this. And it keeps it in the front of their minds every time that they approach somebody, that they do this in a most humane way and approach people with dignity. And thank you.
And that was our final speaker.
Thank you so much. We'll move on to item 9, which is announcements. And I'm happy to kick that off. Glad to announce that I will be appointing Helen Casa to the Community Corrections and Law Enforcement Committee. Helen currently works at the African American Community Services Agency as a policy and advocacy coordinator. She's been an active participant and leader in her community since she was 8. A recent graduate of Santa Clara University, Helen served with the NAACP as a San Jose Youth Chapter President, California and Hawaii Regional Youth and College Education Chair, and a national delegate to the United Nations COP21 climate talks. Helen currently sits on the board of Ethiopian Community Services in San Jose and is an active member of the Silicon Valley chapter of the National Coalition of 100 Black Women. And I will turn to Supervisor Wasserman. And if you have not yet made your appointment, this is me gently encouraging you to do so that we can get this committee formed and get them to work. Do you have any announcements? Do any panelists have any announcements?
No, ma'am.
Nancy, if you can help me, if you see any panelists raising their blue hands. I see
see
Judge
Judge
Ryan
Ryan.
raising her actual hand.
That's actual hand.
Go right ahead.
I don't have that great sign that Supervisor Wasserman has with the blue hand sign on it.
Thank
I'll
you.
get one. I just wanted to let everyone know that the Santa Clara County Superior Court has established a standing committee to critically examine the issues of equality and systemic racism, how they impact justice in our county, and to take action to eliminate all inequities and disparities in our court system. It is very ably led by our wonderful judges, Shalina Brown and Jackie Zun, and followed a very powerful critical conversation or crucial conversation that was led by Judges Brown and Judge Charles Wilson. So we're very excited about that. The court is very enthusiastic about that, and it's our largest committee. As soon as I established it, I got emails from just, I don't know, 35, 40 people saying that they wanted to be a part of it. So I think it's good. I think it's timely. And I also wanted to say, with thanks to Supervisor Chavez, we are working with First Five to try to increase supervised visitation for family law litigants who have not had the opportunity to see their children during this time of COVID. We know that that is very important. The parent-child relationship is very important. There's not a lot of funds for these kinds of things. There's not a lot of situations where we can do this, but we have to keep working at it and we have to get better at it. And we hope that we will be able to partner with First Five and open up some opportunities for people to be able to bond with their children while they're going through the system. Thank you.
That's really wonderful. And as the chair of the First Five Commission, I wholly support that and would be glad to do whatever we can to make this work. That's terrific. Thank you.
Much appreciated. Thank you.
Good deal.
Who else? Other announcements? All right. Seeing none, we will...
Through the chair, one
Oh,
moment,
yes.
please. I have one public speaker.
Oh, thank you so much.
Our next speaker is Scott Largent. I am unmuting you. Please accept the unmute and you will have 2 minutes to speak. The timer will begin when you start speaking.
Thank you, everyone. Scott Largent. I'm just kind of piggybacking off of the fantastic news of hearing what Judge Ryan was saying about the visitation. I've been kind of going back and forth with Cindy Chavez's staff in regards to seeing my child. Right before COVID hit, all visitation was suspended, and I've only talked to my daughter on the phone.
Scott, we just lost you. 30 seconds in.
Are you there?
Yep, we're here. Go ahead.
Hey, that was quite interesting. Maybe my daughter's sending me a signal right here, It's just good to hear something like this being discussed. There's a lot of parents out there that are suffering right now. I got clean to be a father, to be in my daughter's life. That's the reason. That's the most important thing to me. And not having that right now has just made it so difficult. There's nothing else that's more difficult than that. And there is an agency now that got a grant that was like Kids First that was at the courthouse. And what was really good is I got a call the other day that they're going to be able to provide the entire 8 hours a week, as opposed to before it was only an hour. This stuff's provided by the state. It's provided by the grant. The route it was before for a clean and sober, somebody getting off the streets at $100 an hour, that's where my money was going. It was going, rather than paying rent and living in a normal place, I was paying it to see my child. This is just really, really not cheap. It would be great if we could figure something out. I mean, if we could have group visits once this COVID thing's done on that 8th floor of that courthouse, all the kids playing and parents talking. And I just want to do that. I've never even been able to take my daughter to the park. So there's all these new things I want to do. So thank you for discussing that, Judge Ryan. I appreciate that. Thank you.
That was our last speaker.
Thank you very much. All right, if we have got nothing else, I want to thank the clerks and the staff for organizing us so well, and we will adjourn this meeting to December 3rd, 2020 at 2 p.m.
Thank you.
Happy,
thanks,
healthy,
everyone.
safe, and socially distanced Thanksgiving, everyone.
Thank you.
You as well.
Thank you.
Thank